Alrighty. Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon, Flat Earth Homeland, and all them other things. My professional video equipment. Heater meals. I'm getting bored with the food, so I don't have any food. So I've been eating some of these. $2 a piece. Can you see that? $2. Price some suckers on Amazon. So what I'm doing is I'm eating just the food. It's just retort pack. So I'm saving the water pack and the chemical heater thing and the styrofoam thing, obviously. Which right now it's nice heavy styrofoam and it will hold my tablet up. Ta-da! Professional, man. Is that the tablet that's in the... What am I seeing reflected in the corner of the... What the heck is that? Well, that's weird. Yep, that's the tablet. Why did I do that? Oh, stupid me. Hang on. Pause. Well, I tell you, I'm going to leave that in. It brings to mind. I said, look at all my trials and tribulations. So you can see what I'm going through here. I'm not a professional videographer. I could use some help out there. Hello. There's people out there that have the skills, have the talent, and all they're thinking about is themselves. And it could be such a symbiotic relationship. Synergy, look that word up. Jersey used that the other day. Look that word up, and I'm like, why? I know what it means. That's what I've been trying to make happen for years. Professional videographer out there has animals, desperately needs a place for them, a safe place. Got a safe place here. Got a barn with hay in it. Got grass that looks like it was 2 feet tall. Deep, thick grass that needs to get gone away. I'm going to have to go out there and weed whack it by hand and rake it up by hand and burn the dead stuff. Anyway, frustrating. Anyway, look at all my trials and tribulations. Look at all my trials and tribulations, sinking in a gentle pool of wine. Jesus Christ Superstar. Or was that from Truth of Truths? No, that was Jesus Christ Superstar. Larry Norman. Alice is a drag queen, Bowie somewhere in between. Other bands are looking mean. Me, I'm trying to stay clean. I don't dig the radio. I hate what the charts pick. Rock and roll may not be dead, but it's getting sick. Jamie took an overdose. Janice followed so close. The whole music scene and all the world, all the bands are pretty comatose. This time last year, people didn't want to hear. They looked at Jesus from afar. This year, he's a superstar. All right. Hey, I was almost done with this article. So, almost. I could have speeded it up just a little bit. Left out one little story. All right. So, Peter, quoting Isaiah 28:16, refers to Christ as the cornerstone of Zion. See, I lay a stone in Zion, a chosen and precious cornerstone, and the one who trusts in him will never be put to shame. Cornerstone. Jesus is the cornerstone. What is a cornerstone? It's a stone that you lay at the corner? Okay. Is there a cornerstone missing somewhere? Think about it. Here's a heavy question for you. If the cornerstone is missing on the Great Pyramid, how many corners does a pyramid have? Think about that one. Brownie points for whoever gets that one. How many corners does a pyramid really have? If you stick to the correct definition of, or a good definition of corner. All right. Now, how many corners does a cube have? How many corners does a pyramid have? Anyway, Mount Zion as a geographical area is currently the center of much dispute. The Bible is clear that one day Zion will be the sole possession of the Lord Jesus, and Zion, the nation and the city, will be restored. Maybe, maybe not. That's a matter of theological interpretation, and that's foundational. If you really believe that, it might get you adversely affected. I don't know. Awake, awake, clothe yourself in your strength, O Zion, clothe yourself in your beautiful garments. O Jerusalem, the holy city, for the uncircumcised and the unclean will no longer come into you. Isaiah 52:1. And the children of your oppressors will come bowing before you. All who despise you will bow down at your feet and will call you the city of the Lord, of Yahweh, Zion, of the Holy One of Israel. All righty. Next. Click, click, click. Okay. Okay, geographic names in New Zealand. This is Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica's article. And pretty good article. I mean, it's decent. I'd love to see their article in Zion before Britannica was bought out and controlled by the Zionists. The reader of the 1908 Encyclopedia Britannica had an article called "The Failed Jewish Bolshevik Revolution of 1908." Ouch. The 1917 Jewish Bolshevik Revolution succeeded, and now we have communism. Who invented the globe? Zionism. I mean, let's go back a ways. Foundational. You could think backwards, or you can go back to then and think forward. So let's just start with present day real quick here and go back to foundationals, okay? Communism, is this good or bad? Well, let's see. Nobody has any idea how many millions of people have been slaughtered. 3 million in the Pol Pot regime. 40 million supposedly Stalin killed. Lenin, millions upon millions upon millions. There's no way to number them all. There's no way to register. Only, the Most High knows how many people have been killed by communism. Where did communism come from? Zionism, Jewish source. Who invented communism? Marxism. Karl Marx. Das Kapital. Where'd that book come from? You want to know where it came from? It came from atheism. Is communism atheism? Yeah. Where did Das Kapital come from? Atheism. What was the source of that atheism? Anybody know? Das Kapital was a result of putrid atheistic swill fermenting in Karl Marx's brain for 17 years. And the book that was written and sent to him was called Origin of the Species by Charles Darwin. Atheistic evolution is the foundation of Marxism and of communism and of the multiplied millions upon millions upon millions of people who have been slaughtered. Okay? Where did the atheism of Darwinism come from? The atheism of the fact that God is dead. What did Nietzsche say? Atheistic philosopher. God is dead, science killed him. Why is Einstein so revered? Because he's the one that killed God. Theory of evolution. Okay? You have a theory of gravity from Newton and a theory of evolution. You have the Westcott and Hort theory. The New Testament, textual criticism. Theory, not fact, just bullshit theory. Einstein, wrote no books. I mean, he did nothing of value. He got a award, Pulitzer Prize or whatever it was, you know. Yeah, it said the Jews took him from zero to hero. You know, he did nothing. I have a screenshot on this, but I'll throw it in some other time. Just look it up on your own. You know, he didn't write anything of his own. He didn't come up with any discoveries. He didn't do anything of note. He was a whoremongering, lowlife scum, a lying plagiarist. Tesla said he was an idiot. He said people have decorated him up to dress him in purple, but he's a beggar. He's a pauper. He's naked, the emperor that has no clothes, you know, type thing. Anyway, so the source of that atheism goes back to that there's no God. Why could science say there was no God? How could they do that? The ether is real. It's been proven. Sagnac. Every single scientific test that's been done in the history of mankind, Aries failure. Look it up. Michelson Morley. They performed that thing like 200 times to test the Earth's velocity in space, to test the speed of the Earth through the ether. 0 every time. 0. They were in scientific world was in a frenzy. It was in a panic. It was over. Their shtick, their deal, their scam was finished when Michelson Morley did that experiment. Einstein pulled their fat out of the fire by lying and saying, well, there is no ether. You know, right. Why did Tesla say that Einstein was an idiot? Because he is an idiot, was an idiot. So anyway, Tesla knew that the Earth was a giant battery. We now know why it's a giant battery. It's an electrolytic solution. Like I said, this Earth is in the center, and that is a negative charge. And then you have the electrolytic solution of the oceans, and around the outside is the positive charge, and it's one gigantic battery. Looks just like a D-cell battery from the top. North Pole's the center. Why do we see northern lights? Because it's a massive electromagnetic disturbance. There's a disturbance in the force. You're darn right there's a disturbance in the force. All right, it's called God. Electricity. All right, the universe is electric. It's not thermonuclear. Sun is not a star. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so you take that back to where did atheism come from? It came from the swill of Zionism, of Judaism, of the Kabbalah, going back. Like I said, the whole concoction, the whole entire concoction of a 15 billion year old, 15 light year big universe is all based on Kabbalah numbers. That's where it came from. Luciferianism, you know, Apollo missions. Does anybody think about as believers of any kind, Torah observant, Messianic, Christian, we're supposed to believe in the Old Testament to some degree. We're supposed to believe in the Ten Commandments. We're supposed to believe in Torah, supposedly. How many Messianic people say they believe in Torah and believe that the earth is a ball? Oh, hello. What was the mission? To destroy the firmament. Thor, the missiles were named after Thor, the god with the big hammer. How many Christians go watch movies, download them, whatever, about superheroes? They're all Nephilim, they're false gods, they're half people, half human. Every one of them has God as a father, you know, and they're part human. Yeah, my mom was a human, but my God was Zeus, you know. Just idiotic. But the whole thing about the ball, the earth, is that, you know, Thor was the missile they used. The Apollo, what's Apollo? Oh, let's see, he was given the key to the bottomless pit, you know, who's king over the bottomless pit, whose name is, in the Hebrew is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon, Apollo, destroyer. Apollo moon mission. What was the only thing they really accomplished supposedly on that? I mean, you know, for real. Took a picture of the earth. And you can listen to the BBC broadcast and watch them blot the window out, and exactly how they did it. They were in low Earth orbit. They were supposed to be theoretically they were halfway to the moon, and the earth was really far off. It was Watch it. You know, it's out there. However the BBC got a hold of it, they put it out there, and it's on YouTube, and it ain't going away. Fact, it was all a lie. It was all a scam to show the Earth from space as a ball, and they didn't. It was a lie. All the photographs are complete lies. You can put them. Anybody that can download and put Photoshop and see. There's the Earth. Oh, it's got a square around it. Watch Rob Skiba on that. He's one of maybe the first one to figure that out. Put it in Photoshop. Boom! It was inserted. Here's a question. They supposedly landed in the Sea of Tranquility. The Eagle has landed. Okay. If that's so, the moon does not rotate around. Okay. It cartwheels. You can watch it yourself. You can see what looks like a rabbit. Okay. And it'll start like here, and it rotates. Okay. That's what it does. It spins like a wheel. The wheels in the sky keep on turning. Yeah. The sun and the moon are both rotating like a cartwheel. My point is, this is just totally brain dead, simple that any moron could understand. They landed where we can see them. That's never going behind. Then, in other words, from the middle of the moon, Sea of Tranquility, looking at Earth, Earth would always be straight above. And it would fill up the whole sky, practically. They showed it as, Earth rising, like the Earth. They're saying the moon is rotating. Total BS. It's just idiotic. And if you think about it for about 3 minutes, 2 minutes even, you can figure it out yourself. It's all a scam. Every one of those photos are doctored. So, atheism, Apollyon, that's the source of bad theology, and bad theology will always lead to bad practice. So, that's what I'm trying to get across here. What is Zion? It ain't what you're looking at in that picture there. Not no more, it ain't. O Jerusalem, thou that stonest the prophets, Yeah. Not exactly high on God's list of good places. Read it in the Bible. I don't need to go into it right now. All right, geographic names in New Zealand often reflect its native people and European settlement. Ooh, Israel always names its places after its forebears. Others are named after British places, battles, historic events. I don't know. So where is Zion and what's its story? Okay. Each geographic name has a story associated with it. So this article gets better than that. It's not all about New Zealand. All right. Zion is a word that's associated with God's people in both the Old and New Testaments. Hebrew word translated Zion, occurs 152 times in the Old Testament, mainly in Psalms and Prophets. About 1000 BC, King David captured the fortress from the Jebusites. They were Canaanites, and their city, Jebus, Jerusalem, was a natural fortress because it was on a ridge that was surrounded on 3 sides by steep valleys. Okay? The Kidron, the Hinnom, and Tyropoeon. The site was also called this Hill of Ophel, which was in Jerusalem near the Water Gate, like I said, the original Water Gate, and Gihon Spring. The spring was an essential water supply for the fortress. Okay. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I'm just going to finish this out, and then I'll get going. When David took up residence at Ophel, he called it the City of David. 2 Chronicles 32:30, 33:14. It was his royal city, where he built his palace and ruled over Israel. After David brought the ark to Ophel, the hill of Ophel, Zion, it also became a sacred place where the priests and Levites regularly offered praise and worship to God. 2 Samuel 6:10-19, 1 Chronicles 16:1-38. David called it God's holy hill. Psalm 3:4, a lot of places. 15:1. So Ophel, Zion, was the key place in Israel for government and worship during the reign of King David, and it was still called Zion when King Solomon dedicated the temple in 966 BC. Okay. Note, the spring was an essential water supply. The site was also called the Hill of Ophel, which was in Jerusalem near the Watergate. Why is it by the Watergate and Gihon Spring? Water is essential to military, to life, obviously. You and I are walking water, bags of water. Don Tolman, of Brain Garden, and I don't know what his operation is called now. He's in Australia. He abdicated, ran off to down under, over the pond, the other side of the pond. But he said that man is a conspiracy by water to go bipedal. But the fourth phase of water by Gerald Pollack. Get that book. I mean, if you like to read stuff, it's that thick, 8.5 by 11. It is one of the most impressive, awesome books I've ever read. It really is, and humorous, and yet right on. The contention is this is new information. This is like the to me one of the greatest discoveries or presentations of a truth. He didn't actually discover it, but in, I don't know, 500 years, 1,000 years, I mean, we think there's three phases of water. It can be liquid, right? You can freeze it and it can be solid, or you can heat it up until it goes into steam and gas. No, there's 4 phases of water. Water can be structured, and that's what happens when it reaches boiling. It's structured, and when it goes close to freezing, it's structured. Look at, don't believe me? You think it's a bunch of BS, and you think I'm being demonic and occultic? You get me 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, 1,000,000 photographs of snowflakes, and tell me that you can find 2 alike, or ice crystals, and tell me that you can find 1 that's not structured. Ooh, gotcha. Yeah, water structures. It's miraculous, magical when it does. It's utterly mind-boggling, the capacity and the potential, the implications of it in crops, in food. And if we do that over a whole region, we will have a Garden of Eden. So another little key to the puzzle. I said water is going to be key and electricity is going to be key. Those 2 things. All right. So if you were going to know ahead of time, does not Sun Tzu say know ahead of time if you're going to win or not a battle, a war? The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And would it not make sense that if you knew ahead of time that you're going to have a battle and a war, that you would prepare in advance? Right? So tell me this, riddle me this, think about this. Would it not make sense that if you knew that, you would prepare ahead of time and have, let's say, a large area, let's say like a fortress like Zion, with not just one water supply but multiple? I mean, people make fun of Indians. There's people that are like, whatever you want to call them, white supremacists, and they talk about mud people and talk about, laugh about black people and have jokes about Jews and hate, Hispanics and Indians or Tar, whatever. Chief Joseph and Nez Perce, they had 3 ways of doing everything. They had 3 food sources and 3, primary, secondary, tertiary. They had 3 ways of getting water. They had 3 ways of travel. They had always had a primary way to do things, a secondary, and then a third one, a backup. And as Pastor Joe recently said, have plan A, plan B, plan C, and then emergency, contingency. Have 4. So who's got that? Nobody. Nobody does. Nobody does. They're not thinking far ahead enough. They're not thinking past. They don't have plan A. let alone plan B, C, and D. So, but if what I'm getting at here, obviously, is time, as I said in Hebrew, is irrelevant. His feet are standing on the Mount of Olives. The mountain is splitting half to the north, half to the south. There is a river running through that valley. It's present. There is no past, present, and future. So time is, God is operating from outside space and time. So if he knew there's going to be an Armageddon, or whatever you want to call it, Armageddon, Harmageddo, but if he knew ahead of time that a people was going to be hassled, his people, would he not provide for them? I think so. And I think he would have a primary, secondary, tertiary, and emergency contingency plan. It's called rainwater, surface water, lakes, rivers, streams, ponds, creeks, hollers, seasonal streams, aquifer, drill a well. Anywhere you want, you could have water if it was a God's operation. Whoa, I know a place like that. And springs with water so deep and springs so cold that drought doesn't affect them. Entire river coming out of the ground and coming out of a mountain. Yeah, 4 types of water. Water is the new gold. It's the new oil. It's life. Without it, you don't have life. Pretty simple. This is so simple, so elemental, so basic, so obvious. He that reads it can run. He that's running can read it. Right. Yeah. So there you go. Essential water supply. I think God would have an essential water supply somewhere for people. I think he does. So in the first instance, Zion referred to the hill of Ophel, site of a Jebusite fortress, city of David. Okay. During David's reign, the city of Jerusalem expanded towards the north, and after King Solomon built the Israelite temple on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite, it became known as Mount Zion. This hill had been called Mount Moriah in Abraham's time about 880 years earlier. Okay, there we go. When the temple was dedicated, it was filled with a cloud which represented God's presence. In this aspect, it was similar to the tabernacle. The temple was God's dwelling place. That's where the Israelite went to meet God, and that's why Mount Zion was called the place of the name of the Lord Almighty, Isaiah 18:7. This cloud occupied the temple for about 375 years until it departed in the days of Ezekiel. Because the temple was the center of Israelite praise and worship, God calls Mount Zion my holy hill. The temple gave it holiness. That's where the priests and Levites regularly offered praise and worship to God, and that's where Jewish men traveled to 3 times a year for major religious festivals. So the temple was the center of their spiritual life. It was the center of Jewish religion. And by the way, 3 times, in Exodus and Leviticus and Deuteronomy, there's 3 times where the 3 times per year that the major religious festivals are given. Exodus, in Leviticus 2 and Deuteronomy, there was 3 times is recorded what to do during those 3 times of festivals. Men are supposed to appear before Yahweh and not appear empty-handed. I have been in service where I counted over 200 men, adult men over the age of 20, in biblical terms. They're going before the Lord and presenting an offering. So in the second instance, Zion referred to the Temple Mount, which was north of the hill of Ophel. Okay, and then it can also refer to Jerusalem, often used as a synonym for Jerusalem. This is clearest in poetic passages where Zion is the parallel term to Jerusalem. Jerusalem, city of peace, Salem. In these instances, Zion and Jerusalem can also be figures of speech for the inhabitants of Jerusalem or for the land of Judah or Israel, or for the Jewish people as a whole. Jewish people as a whole, whatever, yeah. That's, there's a complete and absolute lack of a good foundation theologically. But hey, we're reading from, what did I say? Britannica. Jerusalem is also called God's holy hill. The city is said to be holy because it includes the temple. Joel gives a warning in Zion, God's holy hill, and promises future peace. In Zion, God's holy hill, and promises future peace. Likewise, God promises to return to Zion, the holy hill, and bring back the Jews to restore Jerusalem after their Babylonian captivity. Okay, he did that. In Psalm 48, Jerusalem is called Zion, Mount Zion, the city of the Lord Almighty, the city of our Elohim. Psalm 87, Jerusalem is called Zion and the city of God. In captivity, the Jews said, by the rivers of Babylon, we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. And that beautiful song by, Psalm, but, as Rich Mullen does it, it's just blows me away every time. The Babylonians had asked them, sing us one of the songs of Zion, but they couldn't do this because they were committed to not forget Jerusalem. So, in the third instance, Zion referred to the city of Jerusalem or its inhabitants or the kingdom associated with Jerusalem, Western Hill. Following the Roman destruction of Jerusalem, the name Zion was assigned to its present location across the Triopian Valley. See Josephus, apparently the upper room where Jesus celebrated the Passover and the room where the disciples gathered after Christ's ascension were in this area. So today, the more dominant Western Hill is called Mount Zion. So in the fourth instance, number 4 we're at now, Zion refers to the hill west of the Triopian Valley. This means that Zion has been used to describe 3 hills in Jerusalem: the hill of Ophel, the Temple Mount, and the Western Hill. Millennial Jerusalem. In the coming millennial kingdom, the Lord Almighty, Yahweh Almighty, the Most High, will reign on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem. In that day, Jerusalem will be the religious and political capital of the world. Once again, God calls Zion my holy hill. That's where Christ reigns and where people worship him. As King David ruled Israel from Jerusalem, Zion, so in the future, Messiah will rule the world from Jerusalem, Zion. If he feels like it. He may not. He may interpret that differently than what they do. I don't know. I'm not, like I said, I've said for a long time, I don't put God in a box. If you split all the hairs, cross all the T's and dot all the I's, there could be 800 different views of prophecy. And I'm here to tell you, they can't all be right. Think about it. For about 2 seconds, they're not all going to be right. That means that 799 of them are wrong. And then the thought occurs, maybe all 800 are wrong. And maybe the Father has a way to bring things to pass in such a way that nobody could figure out in advance, that no man was capable of foreseeing. I think he's perfectly capable of doing that. And I think he'll be sitting up there and laughing. Certainly laughing at these characters that gather themselves together against Yahweh and against his anointed, saying, we will not have this man rule over us. They federate themselves together. They unite together. United kings, nations, the kings together. Kings gather themselves together. The nation gather themselves together and call themselves the League of Nations. Well, that didn't work. United Nations. Yeah. Let me know how that works out for you guys. So in the fifth instance, Mount Zion refers to the city of Jerusalem. This is similar to the third instance, only Christ will be personally present and not just represented by a cloud. The Greek word translated Zion, Sion, occurs 7 times in the New Testament. 5 of these are synonyms of Jerusalem from the Old Testament prophets. Another seems to refer to the second coming, which results in Christ's millennial reign in Jerusalem. We will now look at the other instance of Zion in the New Testament. Now, everybody assumes that there's going to be a millennial reign in Jerusalem. Well, there's a whole bunch of people that don't believe that. And they have a very good theological background, some of the most brilliant scholars in the world. They're called millennialists. Then, of course, there's the post-millennials. Not everybody in the world is premillennial. So, heavenly Jerusalem. In the New Testament, Mount Zion refers metaphorically to the heavenly Jerusalem, God's holy eternal city. Hebrews says, but you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. This is the eternal dwelling place of Yah and his people. Just as there is an earthly Mount Zion in Jerusalem, so there will be a heavenly Mount Zion in New Jerusalem. As the Bible progresses, the word Zion expands in scope and takes on an additional spiritual meaning. As King David ruled Israel from Jerusalem. See, if you repeat something often enough. Anyway, it's already said that once, so I'm not going to repeat it again. Man. All right. So in the sixth instance, Zion refers to the new heavenly Jerusalem. Lessons for us. Are there any? The story behind Zion stretches from 3,000 years ago into the eternal future. Zion was a holy place for the people of God. Let's see here. You're of your father, the devil. Isn't that what he said? And that was his biggest enemy throughout his life, and who said, hey, crucify him, his blood be on us and on our children. And, here's just something, a testimony, the witness of a dying person is in court, held to be, this is what the guy said right before he died, this is what he wrote down, this is his last will and testament. Well, okay, take it to the bank. What if a guy died and said, had that statement when he was living, and then he died, and then came back to life? That ever happened? And said a whole bunch of stuff after he came back, like a whole book, like a book of Revelations. And in that book he says, beware of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. And oddly enough, not just said it once, but said it twice. Read Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9. Case closed. But it blows me away. Quote unquote believers who say they believe the Bible and say that they worship Yeshua call him a liar. Then they worship Jews instead of him. They worship Jews more than him. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I've been in places where they had a Christian, quote unquote, a service, worship service, and an altar to Jews. Candles. I mean, the whole 9 yards. Little icons and weird looking, grody looking things. I mean, it's like, oh yeah? Ooh, creepy. All right. So that's what we're seeing there. A whole long, span of the development of this time, of a concept, okay? And this is, that wasn't Britannica. I am so sorry. I thought it was. Oh, I'll find out. Somebody's concerned. I don't remember. This is the Britannica article. Zion in the Old Testament, the easternmost hill. I'm not going to repeat everything because I just want to get to the gist of this one. I think it's pretty cool. Because this is just going to be repeating some of it. Some scholars believe the name belonged to the stronghold of Zion. Jewish historian Josephus, 1st century AD, identified Zion with the western hill of Jerusalem. Now, if you don't know who Josephus is, he's very important because he was a general under the Jews that were revolting against the Romans. And he was at Masada. Now, what did they do at Masada? Well, they took a pact and said, we ain't going to be taken alive. So they had this pact where they were like, okay, look, the guy number 529 is going to kill guy 528. and then on down the line. You know, this guy kills this guy, and then the guy next to him kills him, and then the guy next to him kills him, and it got down to like the last two men, Josephus and another guy, and they looked at each other and went like, "How about not?" You know, I mean, it's one of the goofiest things. Let's not, you know. So Josephus was a general. The Romans, you know, used him as a general, and he had the opportunity then to write the Josephus, you know, the Wars of the Jews, and man, he was so they're very, very important works, very accurate, very, very thorough, very descriptive, very cool to read. Yeah, this is just repeating everything. So the point I want to get to is coming up pretty quick here. This is a short one. The etymology and meaning of the name are obscure. So mountain, that the pre-Israelite Canaanite name of the hill, the name Mountain of Zion is common, but it means a city rather than the hill itself. Zion appears in the Old Testament, in the Old Testament, overwhelmingly poetic, infrequently used in ordinary prose. What I should have done, this one I could have gone through and underlined. No, it would be on the screen. I don't know if it is or not. I have that drawing capability down here. Anyway, not clear why the name Zion rather than name. I'm going to pause this and just glance over this and get a drink. Okay. So, bottom two lines there is what the point I wanted to take here. One of them. Okay, the last line of that second paragraph there, it is thus the seat of the action of Yahweh in history. Burn that into your brain. Where is God working? It is his seat of action of Yahweh in history. That's a key idea. It doesn't make any difference what's going on over there in the Middle East. It makes a difference where God is working. Is God working over there? I'm going to pause this and turn that off. All right, that's better. So it doesn't make any difference what's going on anywhere else other than where Yahweh is operating. So you got to figure out, where is he operating? What is he doing? We heard a speaker, Jeff Baker, Prophecy Club, 1994. And he said, you know, to most people, most Christians, believers, you know, God is this big candy machine, pop machine in the sky. And you put in your money and you get your Coke or your candy bar. And they say, well, we're gonna build blah, 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 blah. We're going to build an addition to the church. God bless us. You know, and they do a fundraiser and a building drive, and they browbeat everybody into tithing extra money and coughing up extra bucks and all that. So, you know, it's not how God operates. So that made a huge difference in my life. It totally really changed the course of my life, because from then on I prayed, you know, Father, please just. He said, what I do is I just pray, you know, and this is what I started praying, you know, Father, if it's in your will, would you just allow me to know what you're about, and maybe even be a part of that, help. And that's what I prayed. My family can attest to that. You know, 1,000 times in family prayer, I've prayed that prayer. You know, may my family be blessed to be a part of the building up of the, you know, Stone Kingdom. So anyway, so that's the point there. Where is God working? It is the seat of the action of Yahweh in history. In the Old Testament, the city of Jerusalem is personified as a woman and addressed or spoken of as the daughter of Zion, always in a context charged with feeling. Just tugs at your heart right there, you know. Aroused by either of two ideas that stand in opposition to each other. the destruction of Jerusalem or its deliverance. After Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC, the Israelites could not forget Zion, Psalm 137. And in the prophecy after the Babylonian exile of the Jews, Zion is the scene of Yahweh's messianic salvation. It is to Zion the exiles will be restored, and there they will find Yahweh. Bearing all these connotations, Zion came to mean the Jewish homeland, the symbolic of Judaism or Jewish national aspiration, since the name Zionism for the 19th, 20th century movement to establish a Jewish national center or state in Palestine. And of course, that's what Zionism is. And you have to ask yourself the question, if they're Judah, Yehuda, if they're Yehudim, and they were going to establish a nation, why didn't they call it Judah? They're Jews, Judah. Why did they call it Israel? Massive, massive theological implications here. Esau and Jacob, you know. Can't even begin to go into that, because if I get started, I'll, you know, be here for a couple of 3 hours. So think about it. Why is it not called Judah? Why did they call it Israel? You know, Esau didn't like Jacob, never did. Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated, and he created him to destruction. Right there in the Bible. Don't like it? I don't really care, as Fletch would say. I don't really care. I really don't care whether you like it or not. It's in the Bible. Deal with it. It's like, you know, people say, I got this hundreds of times, you know, stop telling people to move here. We don't want nobody here. You know, people say, well, eat them, you know. Long pork is on the menu, you know. Long pork is, you know, humans, cannibalism. You know, long pork is going to be on the menu if they show up here at my place. You know, really sad. And Pastor Joe's dealt with it too, and one of his, he addresses it in his videos off and on. You know, hey, deal with it. You know, I mean, sorry, it's happening. It's been happening for decades. Decades. There are believers who moved here 40-some years ago. Bill and Shirley know a family that moved into Arkansas, homesteaded, never had money to drill a well, hauled water their whole life, 30-some years. The guy passed away, never knew why they were there. Placeholders. Keep the critters down, build the garden up for the next person to come along. You know, that's the way God does. I'm not going to drive them out of Canaan all at once, because if I did, the foxes and the coyotes and the lions and the bears would come in and take over. You know, I'm not going to drive them out. You're going to drive them out, but it's going to be piecemeal. You'll take over their homestead as you come in. You'll take over their farm as you come in. There's a lot of pagans here. There's a lot of drug dealers here that won't be here a few years from now, or whatever. You know, placeholders. Keep the snakes down, copperheads, rattlesnakes, you know, cottonmouths, coyotes, badgers, whatever you have you, bobcats. You know, you got to control the predators. 4-footed and 2-footed. So there you go. And I think, was that yeah. So the point there, that the double meaning, go back to that, okay. The two things, it comes to mean, it tugs at your heart about two things that stand in opposition to each other: the destruction of Jerusalem or its deliverance. And this is from a poem I wrote many years ago. And I write really cool poems and then lose them. So until the advent of the computer, you know, I lost a lot of stuff. But this was brought out in this one line, or one verse of this poem, and it's about the only one I remember from it. But one watchword on the ramparts, one watchword on the walls. None falls if Zion liveth. None lives if Zion falls. And one of the things that one of the articles mentioned was that that concept of Zion is the point about the water being, you know, the hill Ophel was by Watergate and the spring. and it supplied water, Watergate, for the fortress. You have to have water if you're going to have a fortress. If you're going to be besieged, you better have water supply and food supply, and they better be protected. You know, some places you have stories in ancient history where, yeah, they had a water supply, it ran under it. Well, that's how the enemy got in. They removed the little barrier, they came in, boom, at night, through the well, bam, invaded, opened the gates, brought the army in, place falls. Or you dam it up and there's no water. So it can't be from an external source, it has to be from inside. Masada was a place where there was no spring, there was no water, there was no nothing. But they had rainwater at times, and they had a huge cistern. So they had water, but it wasn't secure, it wasn't safe, it wasn't protected in the sense of couldn't be recharged, it couldn't be refreshed, it was not from a spring. So you have to have water if you're going to have a besiegement. And if you knew ahead of time that you're going to have a besiegement, I would have, like I said, several sources of water, like 4 or 5, you know. And so you have you got to have water, and of course food production that goes along with water. The Ozark Plateau is like 10 times bigger than the nation of Switzerland, the occupied part of Switzerland. 10 times bigger. You know, and thousands of times, hundreds or thousands of times more food production capability. So, so the idea that plan ahead, well, I think the Father did plan ahead for this point in time. Whatever you want to call it, Zion, whatever. I mean, definitely, without question, God is working here. So I've established the fact that Zion is not necessarily a place, it's where God is doing something. It's where God's at work. So one of the, I'm not sure, I think it was this poem, and the scansion will tell you if it fits or not, but one of the other couple verses went, dare you think God knows less of war than the pagan writer Sun Tzu, Art of War? Do you think he would wage a war with all of his forces in view, or wage a battle with all of his forces in view? No. No. He's got some aces up his sleeve, and you know, he's got some surprises. And I want to leave this whole thing with another point of seeing. Without vision, the people perish. Think about this. I talked earlier about how we are in a delirium. We have been. And even remnant people. The truth of the matter is that it's depicted in Pilgrim's Progress. Sorry, that was our company. The Enchanted Ground. When they were within sight of Beulah Land, the celestial city. They were within sight of it. And there was a place there called the Enchanted Ground, and it was just such a nice, peaceful place that there was a guy there who had gone to sleep, and he had cobwebs on him, and they tried to wake him up. And no, people died there. They went to the gates of hell from the Enchanted Ground, from within sight of Beulah Land, and there's a lot of people that are remnant believers that's going to happen to. That's just the way it is. It's a truth. Pilgrim's Progress is a massively powerful allegory. And, you know, that's one of the truths depicted in it. And another guy, when I wrote this, in Dr. Joe Kerwin, the dentist guy, writing about something, and he said, well, it reminds me of the poppy fields. I'm like, poppy fields? And he goes, yeah, the poppy fields in Wizard of Oz. And I'm going like, okay, you know, I haven't read the book. But yeah, what a better place to have your enchanted ground depicted than, you know, poppy fields where you can sniff the flowers, you know. I don't know. It sounds good to me. Sounds like a good way to depict it, you know. So, and how much of America is on drugs, either pharmaceutical or, you know, hallucinogenic. I mean, I've heard people tripping out on acid again, LSD again. I mean, just nuts. There's so many drugs around. So many drugs, whether alcohol or, like I said, recreational, whatever, dopers, and it's just horrible. So we are in a delirium. We're in a delirium of water, bad water. I don't remember if I got on it, but we need iodine. What all the bombs and guns of World War I and World War II put together could not do, two men did with the stroke of a pen, Wolf and Chertoff. Iodine might be bad for you. Well, your thyroid collects iodine and it pumps it out to your entire body. And 95% of every instance of breast lumps and tumors and cancer and mastectomies and cervical lumps, tumors, and ovarian cysts, and uterine extractions, and all these things that I like to cut out of you because you don't need them. Iodine deficiency. So, but there's 4 elements that are halogens: iodine, bromine, okay, chlorine, and fluorine. They discovered chlorine, chloros, Greek letter, Greek word, gas, green, okay, iodine, red, bromine, stink, and fluorine, flux, change. Fluoride is the most dangerous, most highly reactive element on the periodic table. So let's put it in the water, and let's put it in toothpaste, and damn sure let's put it in everything we can get it to little kitties with. Yeah. So we're being toxified. We're being brain deadened, dumbed down, numbed down, delirium. We're in a delirium. That's first stage, and I believe we're coming to the end of that time. It's time for remnant people to wake up and to open your eyes and to begin to see truth. That's one thing I want to do. Wake people up and get you to see. Are we seeing correctly? Are we seeing what God is doing in the world? No, I don't think so. Not really. Are we going to win? Well, remains to be seen. Yeah, I think we do because it's in the book, but can I see that happening? Yeah, I can. But if things continue as they are right now, with all you sitting out there doing nothing, with your head up your rear end and your thumb up your rear, whatever, and your fingers over your eyes covered and your ears covered and your mouth covered, and not speaking out and not listening to the still small voice, no, it ain't going to happen. Hell, a lot of people are going to die. The remnant will be a lot fewer, let's put it that way. I believe we're in a flux. We can create a different future, and that's what I'm trying to get across to people. Are we seeing what's really happening? Was there not a time when they were surrounded and the guy said, we're in deep doo-doo, we're surrounded? And no, I'm just, modern English version, No, they that, the Lord open his eyes that he may see. They that are with us are more than they that are with them. Are there not angels? Now, some people have seen them. Allegedly, Corrie ten Boom saw, 5 ranks deep. Israel would go to battle 5 ranks deep. And that angels are in rows, 5 rows deep. Flaming swords drawn, this was 30, 40 years ago, supposedly. Whoever it was, She did have some dreams and visions. Whoever the airplane one was, airplane seat, flying over the Midwest, looked out and saw a circular area, most of it in Missouri, cattle grazing, inside cattle grazing, children playing and whatnot, and outside everything was devastation, chaos, anarchy, pestilence, war, famine, disease, blah, 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 bad. And Pastor Joe, I was doing that, and Pastor Joe Fox was like, inside good, outside bad. I went, yeah. put it real simple, 4 words: inside good, outside bad. The way you describe that is, I have the delirium phase, imperium, and refugium. The word refugium is that's what the word means. It means that it's a place where a species or a group of species can survive even in the face of complete extinction in the surrounding area, as in an ice age. Who wrote that one? Did they know about the grand solar minimum and that we're going into an ice age and that you're going to have this one little sliver, of, I'm looking to see if I can do it. If it looks like that, or does it look like that? I showed you on those maps. Yeah, to the west. That would be west to you. That one little green sliver, a protected area in the entire continent of the United States, the only place. That's why the CIA, that's why Pentagon, that's why Navy personnel, especially Navy SEALs and Green Berets and everybody that has a brain and knows what's going on. John Moore says it, best place to go to the Ozarks, go to the Ozarks, go to the Ozarks, okay? It may turn out being the safest place in the world. I believe so. There are Russians here from all over the world. The gardeners, the ringing cedars of Russian people. I've only heard this one time. I've said it before. But I heard that they stated that Ava, Missouri, is the center of the safest place on earth. Bingo. The fact that they just happen to be quoting, the lady that told me that made that statement, word for word, quote unquote. Oddly enough, I never met her before in my life, but oddly enough, that was a quote from me, verbatim. So, explain that one. I don't know whether it was a confirmation, affirmation, or whatever, or just I don't know. Just very bizarre. Very bizarre. Passing strange. Synchronicity? Yeah, definitely. Absolutely synchronicity. So, there you have it. That is probably enough. All right. Yep. It's like way in the wee early hours, and I need to get some sleep before the sun comes up, like at least an hour. So, hallelujah. I mean, I just see, I've always been seeing things differently, because maybe I'm an I, in Paul's thing, I don't know. We have to have vision, we have to see, we have to know. Preferably we will know ahead of time what's going on, or at least, like I said, pray. Begin praying that. Can it hurt anything? Father, I just ask that you show me, allow me to see some of what you're doing, and if it be your will, and if I would ask that I would be able to be part of that, to be used in the building up of your kingdom, your stone kingdom. Hallelujah. Pretty simple, Pray that prayer. See what happens. Pray that your eyes be open. Pray that you have understanding. Pray that you hear that still small voice, because tell you what, Yahweh's not in the earthquake, not in the fire, not in the wind, the big, powerful wind. He's in the still small voice. And you got to listen for that. You got to be quiet to listen to that. You can't watch TV and hear that. You can't, be watching movies all the time and hear that voice. It's not loud. Most people say the first thing that comes to their mind, and that's because what's coming to your mind, you're repeating. It's not your original thought. You are repeating what was put into your mind. And if it's a loud voice and you come out screaming and cursing and swearing, you're listening to the wrong thing, the wrong entity. It's not the Holy Spirit. So, pray to see and pray to hear. Pretty simple, and pray that, if there's something that you can do that be a part of this. And there is. I mean, every one of you have talent. Every one of you have skills. Every one of you have tools and equipment and stuff. And they're just going to waste. They're going to go to waste. They're going to be stolen or used by somebody else, or you're going to get whacked on the way here if you come out too late or whatever. I mean, it's just not going to work out well. Selfishness will not pay you dividends in the kingdom. Being selfish will not get you a crown. Living for yourself will not, build up a treasure in heaven. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Where is your treasure? So, pray to see, pray to hear. Pretty simple. So, hallelujah. Pray to hear. I always sign off with this is Jerry Diamond. If you're listening to this, if you're hearing this, if you're hearing my voice, you are the remnant. But Messiah said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. If we are hearing him,